up. And we're going to talk a little bit about whether or not opening a restaurant is right for you. So I don't know if everybody knows who and what the Small Business Development Center is, but there's a lot of us here, and actually Paul's at the bottom of your screen, I think, if you're paying attention, and Elena, and I know that Yash is here. He's also a member of our team, and we give you a shout out in our thing today, Yash, so get ready. So the Small Business Development Center is a member of a nationwide network of small business development centers that work with small businesses defined by the SBA, which is anything under $5 million a year in revenue. And we're we are one of their technical assistance partners. And what we offer is a variety of training, one-on-one counseling, confidential one-on-one counseling, less workshop-based like today, to help businesses launch, grow, and move on to the next step. So you want to open a restaurant. How many people here are currently restaurant operators? I don't know if we can get a show of hands. I probably won't be able to see that, Elena.
Yeah, feel free to put that right in the chat, what your status is.
It'd be great to know if I'm talking to folks that are interested in getting started or folks that have a little bit under their belts.
We got one response so far by Pierre. He said that he does.
Awesome. What kind of restaurant, Pierre?
Starsha would like to get started.
Awesome.
Awesome. Maureen sent a message to me. Oh, this is okay. Not sure. Okay, she wants to change her name. That's the point. Okay, so Pierre has a shawarma and
a shawarma. That's awesome.
And gyro sandwich shop. Gyro.
Awesome.
Gyro. I never know how to pronounce that word.
I think it's gyros. That's awesome. That's it.
So far, okay, and then I have a nice ice cream truck, but thinking about opening a brick and mortar from Emily.
Cool. That's really awesome. There's a lot of folks doing the transition, Emily, from mobile food businesses or pop-up to brick and mortar, which is pretty exciting. And there's some other things to consider. So what we're really going to focus on today is how do you determine what your concept is? How do you set that vision? And how do you prepare yourself to get ready for the next step, which is really writing that business plan and starting to do some of your financial calculations. So this is my little wonky org chart of how to start a restaurant. You have any experience? Sure. Do you have a concept? No. Then let's get over, everything is research-based. Let's go back over to do your research. And is your concept better than your competitors? Who decides that? Let's do our research, right? Have you created any projections? Chances are no, unless you're based off of something that you currently have. Let's do our research. So again, everything circles back to deciding the vision, setting that vision, and determining your difference. I feel like I should have music. So, and that maybe we can get some feedback. And guys, if you just want to say something and speak, it would be really great because it's easier then for me to respond to you. But you want to find the difference, and as you develop your concept, is there a need in the marketplace? How many more red sauce spaghetti joints do we need? Are you different? Pierre, your concept is different. There's not a lot of shawarma and gyro shops, and maybe you're halal too, which is also sort of different in our market and new. So is there a need? Is there something missing? Is there a whole big line of taquerias and you want to be the next one? Maybe you don't belong there. Maybe that's not the concept. Maybe there's a spin. How do you focus that idea? We're going to go through some exercises here in a few minutes. You want to develop your point of difference. Is it service? Is it style of food? Is it vegetarian? Is it vegan? Is it coffee only? Is it cocktails and ice cream? What's different? What makes you special? Then we have to talk about how we look at our competition. And these are all things we're going to review in the next couple of slides. Researching our segment, right? Those are all the baseline as you begin the roadmap. And I know vision board sounds a little woo-woo, but it's really not. So we're going to begin with the basics. When you see your restaurant in your head, and most people who are interested in being restaurateurs spend a lot of time fantasizing about it. You think about, what does it feel like? What does the food look like? What's the energy that you're giving? I mean, any shop, really, any retail operation is really customer focused and customer forward in that sense. So is it inviting? Is it warm? Is it cheery? Is it dark and moody? What does it look like? What's special about what you do? Do you, again, make the best ice cream in the world, Emily, that's different, that uses only organic ingredients, or it's made with vegetables? What's different? How, when you think about your product, do you set it aside that it's so different from your competitors that it's going to give you a market edge? That's the beginning phase, right? We want to think about year one, getting up and off the ground and securing our stream of clients, of revenue, of sources. And then what does years 2, 3, and 5 look like as we move forward? This is our basic worksheet. So you're going to make notes on this because you'll have these to share. Then what does that mean? Do we grow? Is it growing in our space? Is it growing in our product line? Is it growing in our menu mix? Is it growing, we want our second location? And then the most important thing as you think about the product and the space and your growth is, what does a check average look like? When a guest comes into your place, what are they buying? You know, in Stephen's case, maybe it's a book and to have a cup of coffee while they're reading a book or perusing the stacks. So what's the average spend? Because that's going to let us start to think about check averages and revenue streams, right? Anyone have any questions or comments so far? Because we're going to power through some of this.
So far, there are none in the chat, but if anyone wants to speak up, feel free to unmute yourselves.
Nothing. No? Okay, we'll keep rolling. So the next slide after this I'm going to share with you is a vision exercise and worksheet that helps you develop what your brand might look like as you get ready to work on your business plan, which will be, in my mind, step one of what happens as you start to develop your entire concept. So if you have experience in the industry, to me, a great way to approach it is to think about some of the best days you've had in your current situation. How do you have more of those? What's it going to take to have more of those? What's the worst day you've had? How do you avoid that? Right? And then we go back to, what does it feel like? What does it look like? Think about your physical space. Think about how it feels to work in that space. What's your dream if budget was no object, right? If money didn't matter, what does it look like? And then how do we get there? And then I think that the last question you could ask yourself is, how do you like to work with others? Do you want to do more networking with similar restaurateurs? Do you want to build relationships and partnerships with other like-minded operations? How do you build relationships and partnerships with your employees, right? So, you know, starting a restaurant tends to be a passion project. And most people who are in the industry are very passionate in their approach. It's a series of questions to ask yourself as you develop your concept, to refine it so that you can then share it with others, right? Because the most important thing is being able to come up with your elevator pitch and your 2-second, 2-minute, this is what I am, this is who we are, this is why you should help me, this is why you should come and see me. So the most important thing in step one, in my mind, as determining whether or not having a restaurant is for you, is to start to create that business plan, right? It's not that difficult. So the steps, you want to think about your vision. I want to open the first vegan taco coconut macaroon restaurant. So what does that look like? Paul's wrinkling his nose. But what does that look like? And why is that different, right? So is there a need? We're going to set that vision. we're going to start to develop the details of that vision. Is it a small cafe? Is it a walk-in restaurant? Is it table service? Do I serve cocktails? Because you probably need them with vegan tacos and coconut macaroons. Is it a quick serve restaurant? Are you going to have third-party delivery? Are you going to only have dine in? What does it look like? Product, which drives all the financial aspects. What are you making? How much is it going to cost you to make it? Is it something that you think is saleable? And again, go back to that menu mix. What does that look like? And then what makes your idea special, right? Is there a question? Oh, there's a template. Does everyone see that template that's coming up in the chat next? Because that's part of our next section. And I'd like to get some interaction. The whole goal of this is not to talk at you, but to talk with you. So I'm hoping that I can get some folks to engage for the next spreadsheet. Are we good? Is it there? Awesome. It's so quiet. I always feel like I'm talking to, I don't know. So let's go on to our next sheet, because that's the one where we'll spend most of the time.
Maggie, touch a little bit about your competitors.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's important. You have competitors in two ways in the marketplace. You have direct competitors, meaning there are other people that are doing what you're doing, right? And you have to come up with a difference or a tweak. Like I said at the beginning of the webinar, there's an awful lot of red sauce Italian style restaurants in the state of Rhode Island. Some are great. There's a lot in the middle of the stream, and then there's some that are maybe not so great, right? So it's important to know what your competitors are doing, both in style of service, price point, which is really important because that helps you to determine your price point, whether they're busy or not. And to me, I sit at my competitors' bars, really, to get a sense of what their business levels are like, how their staff behaves, what the menu looks like, what I see moving through the room. It's a good way to get an eye to see if your idea's got legs, I think. Does that answer the question, Paul?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So this is the sheet that Alina has shared with us in our chat stream, which is, I'm hoping everyone will print this, and hopefully they're coming next week to the next step where we get into some of the nitty gritty, which is the harder parts of this. But, I'd like to go through it a little bit and have people ask questions or talk about, like, this is what I think my restaurant would look like. Mission statement is actually really should be the final one. So what's the style of your restaurant? Because there's things to think about with each kind of restaurant. Full service requires a whole series of infrastructure, expense at startup, training with the team that you may not need for a limited service restaurant or a quick service restaurant. Limited service might mean that someone could come to the counter, place the order, and then you would take it to them at their seat. Whereas a quick service would be they walk in like a quick sandwich shop. You walk in, you order, you wait for your thing, you take it, you go take care of yourself. So of the folks who are here, put it in the chat even, when you think of starting a restaurant, are you thinking full service? Are you thinking a quick serve? Are you thinking a limited service, more cafe? And are there any questions around the differences there?
Someone answered limited service.
Okay. And do you have a question about limited service and what that means? Nope.
They do not.
Okay, good. Perfect. I know Emily, with the food truck going to ice cream, I would assume that you would be more of a quick serve. Is that correct? Right. Yeah, Pierre, I think that you have counter service, right? Folks walk up, place an order. That limits some of your overhead. right? And some of your thought process. Exactly. Good. That's awesome. Pierre, you currently have one location? Two, even better. Nate, are you starting to set up an empire so that you can maybe franchise it down the road? Paul's got a webinar coming up on franchising in a few weeks, I think, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, Em. That's great. All right. So value and improvement. What's different about your concept versus your competitors? Again, and it can be as simple as you have a proprietary recipe. You use fresh, natural ingredients, whereas your competitor is buying from a generic, broadline food seller. You only offer organic ingredients, or you have a special way of making the dish or a cocktail or a coffee drink. What is different about your concept? Because it could be the same taco, vegan taco, coconut macaroon bar that everyone else in town is operating, but what makes yours better? You import your coconut, and those are things you need to start to think about as you start to develop your brand and you're refining your concept, right? Then who's your target? And I'd like to talk a little bit about customers, who's your target audience, and how you find information about your location and whether or not that makes sense for this group of people you're trying to target. Are you a 1 day a week, people come to visit you every week, have dinner once a week? Are you that kind of a concept? Are you want folks to come every day, grab a coffee, get an ice cream, grab a sandwich at lunchtime, do delivery? Is that something that your customer is? Are you interested in being a place where people stop on the way home? Are you interested in being a place where people come every day at the lunch hour or on their way home from work? You have to think about who your customer is. Are there people who are interested in learning about new foods, or are there people who feel good with comfort foods? And those kinds of things help you then think about your location, which quite honestly is probably one of the most important things you can consider for any restaurant concept. You can find great rent or a great building, but if it's so far off the beaten path, unless you're a destination restaurant, you're going to have a hard time making that work. You want to be typically where there's other businesses, not necessarily restaurants and cafes, but where there's activity, whether it's, in a downtown area, in a community where that sort of thing is clustered, in a, what's the word I want? Like a vacation area, in some of our more touristy spaces across the state have great little communities where there's spaces available where it makes sense. And then you want to think about the demographic there. Is it all college students? Something's going to appeal to them that wouldn't necessarily appeal to someone like myself. What's the average income in your location? What's the average age? Some of that information is available, believe it or not, through the census. And you can go online right to the Department of the Census, and they have really great information that speaks to income, age makeup, homeowner versus renter. And then if you drill down in it a little bit, it actually talks to you about what they spend their money on. So in this community, in this zip code, do people spend their money eating in or eating out? Do they own their home? Do they not? And then we have the services available to help you further navigate that as you start to refine your concept. Startup cost considerations. So, and next week we'll go into this in depth. So you again need to think about what's special. What do I need that's different, that's outside of the norm? Is it a white box? The cost to start a restaurant or a cafe from a space that's got no improvements is much different than taking an existing space like you've been looking at, Stephen, and maybe tweaking it to fit your business model. Something that's already outfitted in some way will certainly put you ahead of that curve, because a white box space runs at about $225 a square foot starting. to do the outfitting that is required by the Department of Health, and we'll talk about them next week, to make it available to be used as a restaurant to the general public. And that's really sort of a starting point. And that varies, can get much higher depending on how swanky it is. It sort of stays at about that spot. And then we're back to revenue projections and check average. You have to understand your menu, and your menu has to be priced. And then you have to understand who you think your customer is to basically decide what an average check looks like. On the ice cream store, would they come in and get a cone or a cup? Or do you have fancy sundaes or create your own kind of concept? 50% of the people are just going to grab 2 scoops and bounce. The other 50% are going to get the hot fudge sundae with the gummy bears and the graham crackers. And what's the average of that? Right? What's the average? The same goes with a sandwich place. Does it people come in and just get a sandwich and a bag of chips? Or are they getting a sandwich and a side salad and a bag of chips and a soda? In a coffee shop, are they just getting coffee? And that's got a whole different model, believe it or not, Stephen. I've been working on a lot of coffee shops recently. Just coming in and buying a coffee has sort of a set, almost predetermined national average spend. So that's all about traffic. But then is it about selling them other things? Are they getting a pastry? Are they getting a lunch sandwich? Are they sitting in the afternoon and just hanging out and diluting your check average because they have one coffee and they spend the afternoon using your free internet? So those are things to really consider, because we're going to use that to start to do projections and to talk about that process in our next week. Does anyone have any questions so far? Because believe it or not, we're getting close to the end, because I want to talk about the business plan next and the importance of that.
Maggie, the only thing on location is, I think parking is an important consideration, considering where people may be coming from.
I agree. And I think that it's more important in a more suburban location than an urban location.
Right.
You can solve it in an urban location, either through people are working and living in that area and they can walk to you, or you can offer valet. There's an expectation in downtown Providence. I don't know if it's true in Newport, Paul, maybe you and Isabel could answer this, that valet is free. In Providence, the assumption is you don't pay for valet. I know it's a little bit different in Newport, right?
Yeah, there's not many places really doing valet in Newport.
Now it's just the open lots.
Hotels.
Mm-hmm. In Providence, I was actually part of a restaurant group that opened one of the first sort of fancy steakhouses in town. And the assumption was that we would offer valet and there would be no charge. So the cost associated with that, which went in my startup cost calculator, was actually quite high. Now it's still kind of the same. You don't pay, you just pay the guys, right? You tip them, which is really paying for parking at the end of the day. So all of this work that you're going to do before we meet next Monday at 3, when we talk about more about expenses and startup costs, right, leads you up to the business plan. Okay, so we have a lot of really great resources, both on our website and through our team of awesome counselors and area directors to help you navigate this. And then Elena, I don't know if we're able to, can you put that in the chat, or is that something that you'll send to our guests today? Because Yash, we want to share your PowerPoint presentation because I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I can put that in the chat, as well as just connect to our website. So we basically, like I said, we record all of our webinars, and all the content is sent out to you as well as posted on our website. So I'm going to attach the link right now.
Awesome. So Yashwant, who is here, I think still today, was kicked off our March Madness and did right just before and did a 2-part series on writing a business plan. Tomorrow is his wrap up. It was a 2-week gap, hoping that people would get some, of this underneath their belt. And he has a great outline on how to navigate that. But all of this data that you're gathering is really part of and parcel of what you need in order to begin the writing of that business plan.
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you have time today. It's kind of short notice, but like Maggie just said, we conducted this webinar 2 weeks ago, and it was the notion of we would explain what a business plan is and then send out the content for what you need to create your own. And then you could come back tomorrow and discuss with us what you need to work on and if you needed any help in certain areas. So I just attached that in the chat. Feel free to click on that link and you can see the recording as well as the content in there. Just scroll down a little bit and you'll see it.
And I think it's totally fine if you can't make it to tomorrow's webinar. It would be surprising to see a whole business plan developed overnight.
We're staying up, Yashwant. We're staying up and
Sleep
we're doing it.
is optional.
You can always set up, like Maggie said earlier, you can always set up one-on-one meetings with any of our counselors, and you will get the same amount of attention and same amount of service. Just if you can't make it tomorrow, it's not the end of the world.
Right. But Yashwant, I really thought that your outline was terrific.
Thank you.
And I think that that is a great place for folks to start to think about it, because you're right. I mean, no one's going to get it done for tomorrow, but they might have questions, and
Yeah.
they could certainly join the webinar tomorrow and ask those questions. So
Yeah,
I'd like to go ahead.
Even to just like listen in on maybe what difficulties other people could perhaps face, just gives you insights or something to think about for your own business.
Right. Right. So I'd like to summarize this a little bit. And then I really encourage you to ask some questions now. But, what we want, part one of our webinar is really sort of setting and refining your vision. What's your concept, right? So you have to set that vision. And in doing that, you need to find what's different. You need to think, is it credible? Are you clear in how you're setting that vision? Because that's going to help you as you write your business plan. And do you have conviction? Like, are you passionate about what you're doing? Because I've been in the restaurant and hospitality business for a very long time. And if you're not passionate, if you don't have an ingrained sense of hospitality or a need to share, something that you're able to create and make, whether it's an experience or an entree or a fruit tart, it'll be a challenge for you, because restaurants are probably some of the more, I don't want to use the word challenging, but exciting and okay, challenging businesses to get up and off the ground and then to operate. Okay. Again, you want to think about your location as you think about what your concept and your brand is. And then you want to gather all this information through these exercises to start your business plan. And that's really it today. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit about startup costs and what that is. I have some really great calculators. We're going to go through at least some of the categories. We're going to talk about projecting revenue. That goes back to the menu we talked about today, determining what a menu looks like, determining pricing. Paul asked about your competitors. Are you priced aligned? Are you a little higher? Are you a little lower? And if you're going higher or lower, why? You have to be able to explain why and have some sort of real feeling behind that. Don't just say, because I want business. That's not, everyone sells a Bud Light for $4.50 these days, maybe $5, depending on what. Don't sell them for $4. You're not making your margins. You can sell that for what everyone else is selling it for, right? And then we're also going to talk about some categories that are specific just to the hospitality and restaurant industry in particular. And we're also going to talk about required training that the Department of Health likes to see for restaurateurs. So any questions today?
Maggie, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I just had a call today with someone who's having difficulty staffing.
Oh, yes.
So I thought that might be relevant to businesses that are